Welcome to the Southwest Riverside County Economic Development ECONversations Podcast. I want to thank Scott Agajanian, Kimberly Davidson, and Gina Gonzalez for joining us again. I know I always screw up your name.
Did you say Mick Gonzalez?
Mick Gonzalez, Davis.
You're going to get sued by
McDonald's. Bridget, I'll take it all.
That's right. That's right. So thank you for joining me again this week. And we're going to talk about New Year. We're going to talk about COVID and what is going on and kind of where we think we are. I think that, you know, we've talked a bit and I've talked a lot lately, last week or two, about this idea that kind of we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, right? Is that we've got vaccines are out and about now in our communities. We're starting to see the planning in place for mass vaccinations going on in our communities and the plans in the, you know, with that coming. So I think that we're looking at, you know, March, April timeframe of, you know, vaccines out and about and how that's going to change the mind frame of things and how we look at getting back to business in certain aspects. So, you know, we'll talk about that and talk about what we think, you know, our businesses are going to be looking at for this year and in the future. But I'll see if anyone wants to start off with anything specific.
I do.
Go ahead.
It's exciting. You know, we've avoided this topic because we don't want to be downers, and it's obviously everywhere you go. But, you know, what's I think really falls in line with that timeline, Patrick, that you're discussing is the reopening of schools and the difference that's going to make for working parents to be able to get back to work. You know, for a long time, we were under the impression that schools had to be closed down because they were spreaders, but now it sounds as though that doesn't really get borne out scientifically, that you can have a school in a safe environment at the same time. And I think that opening in concert with having vaccines out there to where you start to get a large percentage of the populace vaccinated will give people the opportunity to work in a more traditional fashion, even though many will probably still retain the teleworking environment that we've seen started. But that blend's going to help a lot of people get back to work, I think.
I completely agree. I think it was encouraging too to see that even with all the other aspects that the governor comes out with in his wonderful weekly reports, but that he did have, what was it last week, that huge push on making sure to get as many kids back to school, even if it's in a hybrid form, as quick as possible. I think that's hugely encouraging in that regard.
Wasn't it at least up to second grade though? I thought it was.
Yeah, I think it's just it's a general consensus that most of the school systems want to get their kids back into at least a hybrid system as quick as possible. I know my sister's a second grade teacher, you know, and she told me a few weeks ago that, you know, teachers are in that next priority round of vaccinations, which I think will be a huge aspect of getting that get back to some sort of functionality within the classroom, because that was always a huge hesitation as far as the, you know, the teachers associations and stuff were going is that if one can't get back into the classroom, then none of them are. Well, once vaccines are available, then there's really no excuse. You have the teachers who are vaccinated, the aides and everyone else, then you can get back into that. And we do know all the numbers are showing that the spread of the virus within the school systems is so much less than anywhere else. It's amazing.
Yeah, on the East Coast, a lot of them are already open in person. So I think they already have data to back that up.
Right. And I think the goal was early spring was the governor's quote, is that by early spring, all schools, not just K through 2, this is across the board.
Well, I'll tell you, they're definitely, the teachers are essential. This mom definitely believes it.
Yes.
Well, and it would be nice, kind of to Scott's point a little bit ago, if we could have a little bit of overlap between the parents who commute and allowing them to telework from home while our businesses continue to open up. Because one of the things we've always struggled with in our valley is our large population of commuters. And if we could get them to work from home for a little bit longer while our businesses open up, so that we can really work to build our businesses back up again, and we could use some more daytime population to do that. So my wish for 2021 is that there's an overlap between the kids going back to school, the businesses being allowed to open back up again in entirety, and still a lot of telecommuting going on with our commuters, so that we can keep more people in town here that can actually do the shopping and do the eating at the restaurants during the day.
How about a blend with a hybrid system where I think we realize there's some value to getting into your office? I don't know about you guys, but being in my office would be amazing. And but being in your office every day maybe isn't necessary for everyone. And
Right.
so that the ability to get together and work with your coworkers and have one-on-one discussions is really valuable and get people into a room. But at some point, telework has become valuable too, because you can find the productivity doesn't decrease. In fact, I think you might find a lot of people that it's increasing.
Especially those who commute 1 to 2 hours one way every day. You get that work time out of them instead of them sitting on, and they're not run down, and there's just a lot of benefit to that. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, for a community that doesn't have a whole lot of office space development, because we're rather young, I would like to see it return. So we can get back to the demand side of things and continue to build some of that industry space that we are so longing for, though. And I don't know if everyone's necessarily works best in that virtual environment. It might work for some, but not for all. I know I'm a people person and I'm dying to hug someone.
Yeah, I think
That
that
part will definitely be nice.
yeah, I think that plays definitely into I think what a lot of us have been trying to convince larger businesses, especially say in the San Diego or Orange County areas, is that you could build yourself a smaller, Class A or Class B office space here for those who live in this region and have them go to that spot instead of having to commute all the way. And I think they're starting to see that there's probably some validity to that now, because they can manage that from a distance. And like Scott said, get that productivity that they're really truly looking for.
I will remind everyone the study we did, which took all of our cities into account, that's claimed that office is the #1 demand driver we have here for the next decade.
Thank you so much for doing that study. Patrick, what are you hearing on the task force with on the EA? What's kind of like the update from the governor's side of things? What are they hearing now that CARES is kind of like care funding's kind of ended?
Good question.
So there's a lot of different aspects to that. There is obviously with the new act that was just passed a few weeks ago, that opens up another avenue of funds coming in. One thing that we just found out in the last week on the workforce development side is that the governor has now opened up another, I want to say like $350 million that's going to be put into workforce development funds for our state, which is huge, because that's a huge part. And I shared a report that was distributed on Friday about how many jobs were lost permanently, just in the last month or so. So there is going to be a huge need for retraining of people and getting people back into the workforce in certain areas. And we know that there's certain areas that are not going to come back because of automation in certain aspects. But having said that, there is huge opportunity too. I think that what we've been working on the task force side is a lot of it has been more reactionary for the most part, because it's just a product of what we're living in right now. And I think we're into this point right now where we're starting to shift that from reactionary to proactive. So the county is aligning and starting to set everything up, and they had entered in an agreement with Curative, which does a lot of the testing that people have heard about, but they don't do just testing. And they're starting to look at transitioning some of their centers across the county from test sites into inoculation sites. And so knowing that they're setting that up now is fantastic, because that gets us to a place where when we do have access to the vaccines, we won't be behind the curve. We'll be ahead of it and be able to get those out as quick as possible, because that's going to be the name of the game, is getting as many people as we can inoculated as quick as possible. The other aspect of it is now that, like I had said earlier, that we're towards, we're in the tunnel, but we can kind of see that light, is what are some specific programs, opportunities that we on a countywide level are going to try to set up or create that are going to help businesses, especially small businesses, be able to accelerate as quick as possible once the doors are reopened per se. And that's where we're at now, is kind of getting that set up so that come that March, April timeframe, we're ready to go. We're actually this week on our task force, we're going to have a presentation from a few of our local economists to really get a good picture of where we are. The challenge is as we had talked a little earlier, is that some of the economists out there have a pretty bleak picture painted. Fortunately, at least for us here in Southwest Riverside County, I think we've weathered the storm better than most. So I think we have a huge opportunity to take advantage of that and rebound better than some other areas. We know some of the challenges that Coachella Valley face and things of that sort. So I don't think we're in that same kind of position. But having that information from local economists will probably give us a better understanding of what we can do to impact businesses as much as possible when we're able to here in the next few months. That's kind of our focus at the moment. So probably over the next few weeks, we'll probably be looking to put some of those programs in place. So obviously I myself will be reaching out to you guys, looking for your thoughts, obviously, because each community is different. And so some of the programs have to be broad enough to, be accessible to everybody, but we need to know what's going to fit best for the most. So.
And I think it's important, you just brought up a really good point, that the recovery is going to take some time. While it's better than other, I guess, parts of the county and other sectors of the state, it is still going to take time, even when things do rebound. I think it's important for the general public to understand that when things do open up, that things just don't automatically go back to normal just because some folks are going back to work. It is going to take some time to recover from this. Losing businesses or losing office, businesses as well, in addition to the retail. It just doesn't happen overnight. Think about, this collective group right here, how long it takes to just, attract, a certain type of eatery or business to this area. It takes years for that to happen, of building a relationship and then becoming interested and then investing into your community. And for it to just come back, in 2-3 months is sadly mistaken. It is, can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years to return where we were just, shy of a year ago.
Well, eateries certainly take several years. Restaurants, fortunately, come much faster. And so we're looking forward to getting those back on track quick. I just love your lexicon, Gina Gonzalez. So, the hope, I think, for all of us, and I think the way we've seen it in South Riverside County has been incremental progress, right? 2021 should be a year of continuing that economically, not in any other facet. But, we have watched everything get really bad, kind of the bottom fall out, and then slowly revenues weren't as bad as everyone projected. And unemployment got really bad, but has gotten better every single month. And as long as we keep marching towards that point, I think businesses are learning how to reopen. Now, some industries are going to be a boon when you get to open up certain hospitality industries that are generally shut down, and you're going to see a good amount of employment come back from that. But I think that everything's just building towards slowly getting better and better and better. And that's the way it's been trending for us for 7-8 months now, right? We've been trending since summer in the right path. Now, that's not going to answer the question on funding sources and liquidity for development and all those other pieces. But I think from a job standpoint, from an employment and revenue standpoint, you're going to continue to see just moderate gains. I don't think anything's going to be a panacea and change overnight. We're not going to go to red tier and all of a sudden things are going to be, everything's better and we can just go on about our business. But as long as we're moving in the right direction instead of the wrong direction, then we can feel a little bit comfortable that we know things are heading back to where they should be.
Well, and it should be noted too that a lot of like our restaurants and a lot of businesses like that are going to have to spend some time playing catch up a bit too. I know a lot of them are in arrears to their vendors and to their supply chains.
Yep.
So that's going to take a little bit to, so if the general public doesn't see a total and complete rebound immediately, there's a lot of reason for that. And one of those would be, I know we have a lot of people that have just, they've dug themselves in deep over the past past year trying to stay alive, and they've done a great job of treading water and staying alive, but they're going to have to dig themselves out of it for a bit too.
I know for us, it's been sit down restaurants. I know the fast casuals, to your point, and the drive-throughs, man, those numbers are record breaking that they're, experiencing right now. But the sit downs, I think because they don't have that quick accessibility, they're taking quite a beating. And that is just like what we all hear, that everyone wants that sit down experience, especially for our community. We have, we're in that growth stage. So we have some of those franchises that, or national brands that have to listen to corporate and of what to do versus a mom and pop that has more flexibility on their business plan. So I'm just hoping that everybody can make it out. And, if I could plea, it would be, to spread the love evenly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point. And I think I've said this before here. And I know Kimberly and I have talked about this pretty extensively, is, Mayor of Wildomar, Dustin Naig, has made this suggestion that in Wildomar that they should, even after, say, everything is allowed to open up again, is to allow restaurants that have established like the outdoor patio area, let them have that for an additional, say, 6 months or so that it gives them that additional seating they need to help, get additional revenue that they wouldn't normally have access to help offset some of those losses that they just went through. I think it's things like that. Obviously we know that it's not possible to make those permanent. It's just not with the way, our codes are written and all the accessibility issues. But I think if you do it on a temporary basis on the other end of it, where they utilize it to help offset, I think that that's a huge opportunity. And I think if we can look at little things like that affect especially those industries that have been affected the most over the last 11 months, 10 months, 11 months, that's where I think we need to focus in on, is how do we get them that opportunity to make a little bit more revenue than they could under their normal circumstances to help offset that. Because we know that they haven't been able to get, even if they got PPP and even if they get a second round of PPP, it's still not even close to covering the losses that they've gone through this past year.
Yeah, this is a great conversation about proactivity. And I think that's where Dustin is being proactive in his thinking as to what the needs are. And it falls in line with the county too, because it's not just outdoor seating. We don't know what the long-term fallout here is, because we still have low vacancy rates because everybody's still not paying, possibly not paying their rents, and they're staying in their space. You're not going to know what that looks like for a long time. There's going to be a day when courts open back up, and when people who are in the rears have to come to terms with what those bills are. And if we don't have programs to support some of those businesses that are hanging on, then you're gonna see them fall away, and we're not going to know what the real eatery situation is for a long, long time. I know, I'm just playing with the eatery word. I love the word eatery.
I know you are. But I was going to say, it's important that if there is a business that is listening to this podcast today, is to reach out to one of our cities and let us know, because it will assist all of us in developing a program to help them, because what we don't know is what we don't know. And if it's not being exposed now, then they'll be asking for it later, and it takes a while to develop those programs. But you know what, Patrick, we could do a retire the debt party, and for those particular restaurants that are behind, to help them catch up.
Yep, totally could. And that, to the point that we've talked about before is right. And we had a certain economist on at one point that we all talked to, that we didn't agree on certain aspects that we were hearing about when it came to commercial rents and stuff, and that issue and how it's building up in our, everywhere really, but especially in this state. That's something that we, to Scott's point, we probably won't know the full extent for until another 6 months or so. And so it's very critical that we are all talking on a regular basis. So we know these different things that we hear. And like someone like myself who sits on the task force, I need to know from you guys on a regular basis what you're hearing so that I can bring it there to see if there is something that we can do countywide that then helps everybody. But then also doesn't just put the onus on every individual city by themselves, that there's a concerted effort. We're all working together.
I think it's going to be important that the county continue even the grant programs if we can, even for post, or at least, the federal government to understand that some people were utilizing it, not just for payroll, but some of them themselves needed it to just survive, and not necessarily were paying their rent, so to speak, but they could have been using it for payroll for themselves and others. And someone needs to be paid that payroll. So they may be evicted when all this is over. So whatever they could go after to help them catch up is going to be greatly needed.
I assume a big challenge for you, Gina, is that a lot of the grant programs that rolled out had requirements of being in business over a year. And you're a pretty new city. You had a lot of restaurants coming in the last year, right? And so probably at a higher rate than any of our other cities in South Riverside County. So you have more, brand new businesses that were coming in at just the wrong time, that had no resources to help them because they just happened to open the wrong day.
I had medical, to your point, there were brand new medical. We were concentrating on medical use, and I knew we had 53 new medical companies that came in. And to your point, they have not been established in a whole year. So they're not necessarily qualified for that funding, but we were trying to help any which way that we could, though, to close that gap. But yeah, our biggest one, I think, are some of our downtown, our old Sun City area, and a lot of them depended on that networking and seeing that exposure of people coming out and creating that placemaking opportunity for people to that nightlife environment. And it's been very difficult, but we've really been trying to work around the clock with our council to help them. So it's unknown. All we do is I beg you, the public, to just to keep helping our businesses as much as you can, our sit down restaurants, and to be patient when things do open up and go back to normal, to know that it isn't going to recover just right away. So keep being supportive like you are.
What do you guys think about retailtainment and placemaking, like you were just saying? Those were the buzzwords a few years ago, and right, that's what everybody was looking for, is that destinational style entertainment retail complex.
Still are. We're dying for it now.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's gonna go back to that same demand point and the same drivers? Because I have a feeling there's a pent up demand that the market's not going to be able to catch up to and build fast enough.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. How many of us have been locked away in our homes?
I think developers will be more mindful of outdoor spaces now. I think
yes,
they have a bigger impact on their footprint. And they're going to see that as a money-making opportunity, because we're going to want those outdoor opportunities, so that in case this happens again, those areas will be set up for success.
Especially in Southwest California here.
Our beautiful weather. I mean, you can eat outside 360 days a year, with a
couple of heaters during the winter, and
a space heater and a mister or two during the summer, and you're good to go. So
to your point, we have Center Point, which is a commercial development, and they were already processed. And as much as we were asking for some of those sit down, placemaking opportunities out on the patio, and they already provided some, but not necessarily to the extent that we would all like to see. They did end up coming back in during COVID and changed their plans, including one of the restaurants that we had, adding a patio, even though we've asked for it, because of just that. And it's like, well, if we would have had it before, but nevertheless, they are coming back and rethinking the design of the centers, to your point. So I think that's one silver lining. I know we have a couple others, but that was one that we've seen to really give way to what you're talking about, Scott, is I think that's exactly what it's not going away at all.
Yeah,
the question becomes funding. I'm sorry, Patrick. How quick do markets open up that allow people to fund these kinds of projects again? And knowing that there's usually a trend line in a history that helps them feel comfortable with the investment, but that trend line's a little bit messed up now, right? If you can't look at it the way you used to. And so does that make it take longer for people to establish and come back with the data they need to see? Or is the demand going to be self-evident and we're going to see, funding immediately return?
I'm hoping they treat it like saturation levels and they take 6 months to evaluate demand. I'd like to see sooner, but realistically, it might be 6 months, and I'm hoping that they don't say, give me a year, because that's ridiculous. But we've had it before, this whole area. So I'd like to see 3 months, but realistically, they'll look at like they do saturation 6 months.
I was just going to say there may be that based on what you're saying, Scott, the pent up demand for some of these things is we all know that there's different projects that are out there that have the funding, have everything, but they've just been sitting on hold because they're waiting just to see. And it's not like they're having these same exact conversations. They know what that demand is going to be when certain things open up and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see a lot of projects that were already approved that come back pretty quickly and say, okay, we're ready to go, but we need to change this, kind of like you were saying, Gina, to the Center Point, places that, there's a need for more patio stuff. There's a need for more drive-through pads now. There's there's going to be a need for entertainment stuff because there's a huge pent-up desire for that.
And there's no need to wait 6 months to start
Right.
that up. I'd like to remind them that's called concurrent processing.
Yeah.
Never, ever underestimate Americans' willingness to spend money.
Right. But see, that could be one of those things too, that the cities could be looking at as an opportunity is, why not, put out a, quote unquote incentive to developers of, hey, you've got a project, you need to do something. We'll help you with this. We'll fast track it. We'll do, be creative and come up with ways to incentivize developers to take their project.
Riverside County, to your part, Patrick, we all do that out
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. But I'm just saying is like, again, but as well as I do, right now it's about marketing. It's about getting the word out there. It's just getting people to know it. That's the thing is let's figure out ways to do that too.
It's a great idea. Well, I'll let for our projects that are moving along there right now, unfortunately, and they'd hate for me to say this, but they're cash based because of the commercial lending freeze right now with COVID. So, luckily a lot of us have, some cash investors that are moving forward, but to your point, it's unfortunate.
Kim, I'm wondering the retail center that opened up along Clinton Keith and the 15 freeway, which is in the southwest corner, very new. It just came into market, kind of a little mini Menifee there. How are they faring? Because there's a lot of restaurants and eateries in that center.
We're getting a new restaurant's opening up in a week.
Yeah, that was the funny one, right? You had
Pray tell.
two that closed in that
Two,
center.
actually, we got
and then two that reopened in their spaces right away.
So Angelo's and Sushi Ka have been cranking. So this would be Wildomar Square that you're referring to. That's right off of the 15 and Clinton Keith in Wildomar, and it has in the plaza, if you're familiar with the plaza, it has Dunkin' Donuts, it has The Habit, Taco Bell, Robex. All of those have been doing fine as far as we can tell. They haven't indicated otherwise. I see that the drive-through for The Habit and for Dunkin' Donuts is always seemingly packed. But we did just have Angelo's just expanded. Angelo's is a fine dining Italian restaurant there. They just expanded into the suite next door, and they continued to do that. I started it prior to the COVID shutdown, and they continued throughout, and they got it approved and open. I mean, they can't use it, but it's ready to go for when they are allowed to be open. Wingstop opened up in that same plaza in November, and Palm Thai restaurant will be opening up in just about a week or two. They said mid-January. So
they have great food.
Yeah, we're really excited about that. Wildomar Square Wildomar Square is also getting a cannabis retail store that will be opening up this year. It's already been approved. And so that really and they got an accelerated urgent care. So they've kind of been, they were my bingo square winner when I've been doing my presentations to council on what businesses are opening, it was like Wildomar Square, Wildomar Square, Wildomar Square. And so they've had a lot of businesses open. They're down to, they have one vacancy left that we're trying to fill. And it's only been a little bit challenging because of the size and the location of it. But we will find the right user to go in there. It's right on the freeway. So it's a great location as far as geographic location. But I think the size of it is a little bit challenging. It's too big for some and too small for others. So it's just kind of a, but yeah, thank you for asking. That plaza seems to be doing very well, actually.
Excellent. Patrick, I'm sorry. I just every once in a while think that you want to host the show and then we try to take it back over from
Not
you.
me. No. It's all good. It's all good. So,
And there's the lull in the silence.
yeah. Well, I think it's a good place to end. I know that some of us have to get to another meeting here soon. So I want to thank you all for joining us again. Like I said, I think we have some positive things to look forward to and are excited for the opportunities coming up. And as was said, is if you have questions or concerns or thoughts, please make sure that you reach out to any one of us and share those with us so that we can make sure that we're being as proactive for our business communities as we possibly can. So Gina Gonzalez, Kimberly Davidson, Scott Agajanian, thank you again for joining us on our weekly eConversations podcast.
Hi, guys.
Bye.